forgive me because I'm going to talk a lot about what I understand from my work in the UK. And although I have worked in New York and I have worked in Washington and I have worked in California, I'm really not familiar with this particular community. And also there are words that we use in the UK, like sustainable communities, etc. You may have different words for these things. So if there's any level of misinterpretation, you can pick me up on it at the end. I'm just going to start by talking a little bit about a lecture I gave last week with somebody called Susan Greenfield, who's head of the Royal Institute, which is the scientific academy in the United Kingdom. And she's an expert on the brain. And she was talking about an experiment that they did recently on the brain. She showed a brain when it was just a newborn brain, which is basically a little tree stem with a few little fronds coming off it. And then if you look at that same brain when it's in a dementia state, it is returned to almost that same single stem with a few little tiny fronds. And then if you look at the journey of the brain through our lives, depending on how much stimulation the brain receives, how many connections the brain makes, how many relationships it makes, how many thoughts it has, the brain will become an ever-branching out set of fronds. And the more fronds it has, the more able it is to approach other fronds in other people's brains and get more understanding. However, the governments in Britain have realised that this march of the creative economy, they've been able to see that in certain places where it really took a hold, let's just take Glasgow as an example, it changed the entire sense of what the community was. So it wasn't something that Glasgow set about to do. It was something that started happening to Glasgow from its own citizens. And because of the way that the arts had been perceived in Britain as luxury item, for some, not for all, something which you added on as an extra, something that had been marginalised in the education framework, it was a real shock to people to realise that the things they had relied upon to increase the economic and sense of confidence about a community, those things that they relied upon, which was this trickle down of wealth, that actually it wasn't that was achieving it. It was the creativity and culture of a city that was producing a new identity and a new confidence. Allow us to be at the table. Allow us to think about health. Allow us to think about education. Allow us to think about social housing. In other words, don't relegate all the creative thinkers of your community to simply producing art. Of course, that's what we're here for. But you don't ask business people simply to stay and do their businesses around a table thinking about the future of New Haven or Liverpool or Glasgow would be the leaders of that community.
And if we stop and think about it, we think about how important all these attributes of this community are to why people come here, why probably many people in this auditorium came to New Haven whenever they did first, and why we've all stayed, and what we love about this community and what we think of as the assets of this community. I suspect that the things I just listed would be high on that list. It's certainly what people talk about when they talk about this community. And if you stop and think about it, it's certainly, and think about the favorable attention New Haven gets. Not all New Haven's press and attention in the world is favorable. More and more of it is all the time. It's around these issues, really, when you stop and think about it.
And so I sit before you here tonight as the business advocate for the state of Connecticut. My principal job is to advocate for the business community. And as much as I enjoy the arts, I have to look at the tedious and boring bottom line economic impact of the arts. The arts, film, heritage, historic preservation, and tourism are responsible for $14 billion in gross state product, $9.1 billion in personal income, 171,000 jobs, and $1.7 billion in state and local revenues. Interestingly enough, the arts in the state of Connecticut, culture and tourism as an umbrella for the arts, provide more economic benefit to the state of Connecticut than aerospace and pharmaceutical combined.